Hello everybody and welcome. Today we are going to talk about animation canceling in the Elder Scrolls Online. Of course, I have got a lot of PvP footage for you guys here, and I'm going to be commentating it a little bit, but for the most part, we're going to be talking about animation canceling and whether or not it really belongs in the Elder Scrolls Online. So what does it really do for this game that makes it important or not important? And a big reason why I wanted to make this video is because I've seen a lot of people continue to talk about animation canceling. Even though it's been in the game for 5 years, it's still kind of a topic that people are against. I hear people say, hey, you shouldn't have animation canceling in ESO. So let's talk about it. Let's have a chat about animation canceling. So to begin, animation canceling does not allow you to spit out your skills faster. It simply allows you to spit out your skills in the right order. The way this game kind of works is that different abilities kind of have different global cooldowns. Abilities that you cast that are on your skill bar all have a global cooldown of 1 second, and then things like light attack, block, roll dodge, potion, etc. you can use independently of that skill global cooldown. So essentially what animation canceling is just kind of timing and using your skills in the right order to pump them out in the most effective way possible. Now, what does that result in? Well, it pretty much creates the twitch combat that we see in ESO, that especially when you play more burst-oriented builds and things like PvP, animation canceling makes it very, very timing-based, and you have a lot of control over your abilities because you're not waiting 1 second in between every single cast kind of on cooldown. Now, this, of course, was not really intended by ZeniMax when the game was first put together. They didn't intend for animation canceling to function the way it did. It was just kind of the way that it turned out when they had coded the game. And this is where I think one of the big kind of arguments against animation canceling will originate, is that it wasn't intended by ZeniMax. And I think a great counter argument to that is that yes, it was not intended. However, if you were to uproot animation canceling from this game, it would seriously affect how players play this game and how players who have played this game for, some time already feel about the combat if they were to just kind of remove animation canceling altogether. So at this point, I don't think it's a legitimate option for ZeniMax to remove animation canceling. I think that a majority of the player base that plays at a higher level would agree that they've kind of gotten very used to the faster mechanics that animation canceling has kind of allowed in this game. And they enjoy the extra feeling of control that animation canceling adds because they can time their abilities better, etc. And I can understand how, if all you do for your animation canceling is spam light attack in between your skills, you could see that it is not the most useful function. But once you start playing at the higher levels and you really take advantage of all the different things that the canceling can do, it really starts to affect your gameplay. And I think something you can see just in this defensive footage here is how the canceling is so important to our survival. We're doing a lot of things like casting a skill into our dodge roll, and just that cancel alone, the skill cast into the dodge roll, if we had to wait a second after the skill cast for the full animation to go and then roll, we would just get hit right away by all these attacks and we would have died, ages ago. So for the sake of kind of just controlling yourself and your character in combat, I think it's very important that we have this animation canceling system where we can easily go from a skill into a dodge roll, into a block if we need to, just to keep our defenses up. Of course, it's going to cost us our resource, and that's kind of a decision we make over the course of the fight, whether we want to block that attack or roll that attack or whatever. But the animation canceling makes that process much more smooth and much more seamless. And as you continue to practice, your different rotations with your skills and get the feel for all the timing of your abilities, you can really start to see in your own gameplay the improvement. And it's visible through, your animation canceling. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that animation canceling is a great representation of actual mechanical gameplay skill in this game, in my opinion. And I think it's because it allows you to have that very high increased control over your character where spamming a skill every 1 second would just not. And that, of course, brings me to the fluidity. Not only is animation canceling, of course, a big part of playing this game well, but it makes the game feel fluid to play. I think if we had to play out every animation, this game wouldn't feel as nice to play at all. I think a big part of why people like ESO is because the combat is fun to play. It feels reactive. It doesn't feel like your character is, you know, not doing what you're telling it to do. And if we were to kind of put those harsh cooldowns on, I think that feeling of combat would greatly diminish. A great example is, you know, if you're watching the gameplay here, when we're making these inputs on the cancels, we're doing, you know, around 4 inputs per second, depending on what kind of combat we're in. If we're in heavy combat, we could be doing maybe even up to 6 or 7 inputs a second. And if we were to take animation canceling out, we're now at 1 input a second. And that alone just tells you what the feel of it would be. It would just feel so different. I almost want to go as far to say is like ESO wouldn't feel like the action fighting game it is today, where it's just like a fighter. It would feel a lot more like a traditional cooldown based MMO. So all of this discussion kind of ties into my final point of why is this still something that people talk about? I mean, I had said earlier, ESO is almost 5 years old, and we still see forum posts and people saying animation canceling's not good for the game. It's bad. It should be removed. And you know, why is it like that? And I think that the biggest culprit reason of why animation canceling is not viewed in a positive light is honestly ZeniMax, and it falls on them to embrace animation canceling in their game. And they had in the past said that, you know, animation canceling's part of the game and we're just going to leave it in there and balance the game around it. But there's no tutorial in the game that tells you how to animation cancel. You know, they don't teach you literally any of this stuff. They give you a very basic, you can light attack, you can use skills, you can bash people, but they don't tell you how to weave, they don't tell you how to time your attacks, nothing. If you want any of that information, you've got to go look it up from other players on YouTube channels and stuff like that. So that's why I say I think one of the biggest culprits is ZeniMax. I feel like animation canceling would not be a contentious issue at all if there was a tutorial for it in the game. Sure, maybe for a month or two, people would be like, how dare you embrace animation canceling so fully? But after 1 year, man, we would never see that post again of, is animation canceling good or bad? It would just be, you know, the tutorial on animation canceling is bugged or something. Who knows? But we wouldn't be having that discussion of whether this is healthy for the game or not. And, you know, I've made my point of view clear where I think it is definitely important to the game, and without it, ESO would not be the same game, essentially. So I definitely understand, you know, the other side of the argument of it's harder for new players, and I think it's not hard to do. I think animation canceling as something in the game is easy to pick up and maybe difficult to master, but for a new player, man, there's just no information, and the lack of information is the real culprit here. If there was something in the game that walked you through it and just everybody got to get introduced to it in some way, or they had the opportunity to go back and check it out, we wouldn't have these problems. So I know I said that I would commentate this fight, but honestly, I didn't commentate any of it. I just had a lot to say about animation canceling, but I did want to share it, and I would also love to hear what you guys think about animation canceling, if you guys think it's good or bad for the game, and why you guys think we still have this discussion today about it. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Come check me out live on Twitch. We have got community PvP content. If you guys want to submit anything, send it to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. And finally, we are sponsored by What the Fast. If you guys want to check out a VPN to give you better ping to ESO, it is completely free to try. A link to that and everything else, of course, is in the description. So thank you guys for tuning in. Yet again, I'd love to hear your opinions, and have a great night, everybody.